What's going on, everybody? It's your boy M.I. Sizzle back in the building with yet another YouTube video. Today, in the latest for our Explained series, today we're going to be talking about mental frame advantage. All right, what is it? How do we use it? Why is it important? Okay. Now, you may have heard the term mental or psychological frame advantage. But what exactly is mental or psychological frame advantage? How does this differ from regular frame advantage? Well, the working definition we're going to be using today is going to be when a player successfully continues their offense after an opponent blocks a previous negative frame attack used by that player. So essentially, it all boils down to being able to create offense from negative frames. Now, what are the ways that we can gain mental frame advantage? Well, we're going to talk about three main ways and techniques that you can use to go from a disadvantaged position into an offensive advantage position, okay? Now, the first one we're going to talk about is using attacks that have uninterruptible follow-ups, usually a delayable mid, all right? The example we're going to be using is going to be Kings down forward 1-2. All right. So let's look at that. How exactly does it work? So the first thing we're going to look at for an example is going to be Kings down forward 1-2 series. Now, Kings down forward 1 is -1 on block. So because it's -1 on block, a lot of people will try to challenge with a jab, or if they're really feeling freaky, they might do an 11 frame magic 4. And this is in case you try to do down forward 1 and you try to attack again afterwards, right? But they will have to do this immediately for it to take effect. So what happens if they do down forward, if King does down forward 1 and he delays the 2 and the opponent tries to immediately jab or do a retaliatory attack? You see that they got counter hit. There was nothing I really could do there. And because it's a mid, I can't even do like a low jab or anything. In fact, the string won't even allow me to do an armor attack. You see that it beats me out of the armor. So the only thing the opponent can do here is block and look for the punish. That's going to be their reward for waiting long enough. But how do we turn this into mental frame advantage? Well, because the opponent has to swing, because the opponent has to stay still in order to not get hit by the second part for swinging, what the player then gets the opportunity to do is do down forward 1 and then do an offensive mix-up. So let's take a look at that. We're going to set King up to do down forward 1 into down forward 1, or down forward 1 into a mid, down forward 1 into a low. So because the opponent is waiting, King's going to do down forward 1, and then he's going to steal the turn by doing a mid attack, right? Or going low. Now this opponent is going to have to guess between the low and the mid because they're waiting on the opportunity to attack. Now that the opponent has this situation going on, we've just turned what was a -1 into basically our +4 move, right? Because they waited around, maybe even +5. We turned basically a -1 move into a +5 move because the opponent was unable to swing because they were afraid. And essentially, that's one of the main ways that you can get mental frame advantage on your opponent. That's by having a move that has a delayable mid follow-up behind the initial swing that you're doing, all right? So that's one option for creating mental frame advantage. But let's look at some other options for creating mental frame advantage. If you don't happen to have a mid delayable follow-up. Okay, moving on to our next technique, we're going to use movement as a way to avoid frame disadvantage retaliation from our opponent. And what we're going to use as an example is going to be Kings 2-1. Now 2-1 happens to be negative on block, but it also is only -1. So from that -1 position, opponent could try to swing, and if they try to do a linear attack or they're trying to do a jab, because that is going to beat out anything that we try to do, we notice that we can step. Now also what we can see is that if the opponent tries to jab, we can punish the jab. So let's check it out. All right, so because our opponent is trying to jab us to beat us out and counter hit us if we try to swing, we were able to avoid it by doing forward 2-1 after we sidestep, and we were able to punish them immediately after the jab. So now our opponent is going to try to stop us from sidestepping, and they can do so with tools that may hit sidestep, right? So on that particular side, this move happens to stop him from sidestep and counter hits him because he's trying to whiff punish, right? So what is it that we can do about this? Well, here's where things get interesting. We're going to set King to doing 2-1, and then he's going to do back 1. All right. Now notice what's happening. Even though King is at the disadvantage, because the opponent is choosing to use a move to catch the sidestep, they are now susceptible for getting counter hit. And we've just turned what was a -1 move into a +3 move. And we've counter hit this opponent out of their attempt to try to swing back. Once again, you notice we're not having actual frame advantage, but because of what the opponent has to do to punish us from using 2-1, or to deter us from using 2-1 and then try to punish our options, they leave themselves susceptible to getting counter hit, which is pretty much where you want to be. So now that this person is staying still and they don't want to end up swinging anymore, now you can do 2-1 into whatever offensive technique you want to do. So now you can do 2-1 into forward 3, 2-1 into down 3. And essentially you've turned 2-1 from a negative attack to a mentally positive frame attack, because now the opponent doesn't want to swing after it. Another movement technique we can use is the backdash, and it creates a very similar situation where the opponent tries to retaliate and they eat a whiff punish. So now that opponent knows that they have double options here with movement, that they can't just immediately retaliate, or they may suffer punishment. Now this opponent is not going to move after 2-1, and then you can start your onslaught of offensive mix-ups from a negative disadvantage state. Okay, for our very last technique we're going to talk about today, we're going to be talking about using crushing properties to avoid frame disadvantage retaliation. And what we're going to use to demonstrate this is going to be down forward 2-1. All right. Now down forward 2 by itself is -6. So you can take a look at that. That's -6 on block. Now you're probably saying to yourself, Mike, okay, it was cool. I understood when it was -1 and they had the jab, but come on, -6? Bruh, like that's too disadvantaged. There's no way you're going to create advantage from that disadvantage. -6? Well, here's the thing. It has a follow-up, but the follow-up is high. So we're going to look at the follow-up. All right, down forward 2-1. Now what this does is it prevents them from swinging, but it's a high move. So what if the opponent decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just go low. Like after he does the down forward 2, I'm just going to go low. Well, here's where the crushing comes into play. We're going to set our opponent to do down forward 2 into a jaguar step 2. And we're going to try to do our low, which would normally beat out the high, and it would interrupt the high if they try to do anything. And it will also beat out any attack that they tried to do because they were -6. So let's check out what happens here. Look at that. Gold. All right. Gold. So in the situation where we were -6, they went for a move to crush our high attack so they didn't have to worry about the second part of the string. But because they were trying to do something that was low, that would also punish us if we tried to swing. It would also punish us if we tried to step. If we tried to do anything besides block, we would have to eat that. Or so they thought. But because we had the ability to crush their low move, because we were not so negative that we couldn't even come up off the ground, well, in that situation, we created a mix-up where they now have to worry about, after down forward 2, they got to worry about the Jaguar spin. But what's the problem here? Well, with the Jaguar spin, you can get floated. So they say, oh, well, I'm just going to swing on him. I'm going to punch him. He can't even get up off the ground, right? But what is the inherent problem here? Well, let's look at it. They go for the jabs. Even if they press them immediate, because we can delay, they have to worry about the high, right? So now that they are getting counter hit by the high move and they can't just go low, what happens? Well, guess what? You get to take their turn because they're waiting on you now to finish the high so that they can whiff punish or duck the high, or they want to crush it. They can't really always crush it. So what are they going to do? They're going to wait around. And when they wait around, what happens? You get the opportunity to do this. All right. So now that the opponent, you're at -6, but because you've given the reason for an opponent to stay still and pause, you've turned -6 into what is seemingly a positive 6 or 7. It could actually be a positive anything because they're waiting around. They're so afraid of the counter hit that they are not willing to swing. And therefore, you are now creating mental or psychological frame advantage. Now, why is this important? Well, first and foremost, it's always good to just understand how the game works and to add another tool into your tool bag. But specifically, learning how to use mental frame advantage, it can lead to you being able to create counter hits from a negative or disadvantaged situation. And if you'd like to learn more about counter hits and how to use counter hits, make sure to check out the counter hitting explained video link that's at the end of this video. And of course, with that being said, that brings this video to the end. I hope you learned something. If you did, drop a like, drop your opinions about what this is or questions and comments in the comment section below. And of course, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so when we come out with more explained content or any other content on the channel, you'll be right here to get it. So without further ado, you already know what it is. It's the realm of the real, y'all, where only the real can chill. Peace.